something's not right?
Well, for me, I first heard about my fibroids when I was pregnant with my daughter Noelle, who's now 25. And what I remember is when the doctor told me that I had a fibroid, I was like, oh my God, what's that? What's happening? She really was like, really played it down like it was something that I wouldn't really have to worry about in the future.
And it was small at the time.
It was like the size of a grape. She's like, oh, it's the size of a grape, the baby's fine, you're gonna be fine. And I never thought about it again. And what I didn't know is that they would continue to grow over the years and be, eventually cause me all the different issues that comes with fibroids.
But did you have was your pregnancy painful?
Yeah.
Oh,
as to be expected, yeah.
And
Yeah,
that came
I had
from
all the
fibroids?
No, that had nothing to do with the fibroids.
Oh, really?
That was just the first time I heard of a fibroid.
Oh.
I didn't know what it was. I'd never, heard of it before then. So that was just my first time, having that conversation.
And how about for you?
I was actually going through IVF treatments, and that's when I found out that I had fibroids. I've always had the very worst periods. I would have to call out of school because I couldn't go to school because I would have crazy cramps.
Same.
I would have to wear like a tampon and a pad at the same time, like very heavy periods, blood clots in my periods. Like it was.
And this is starting at what age?
This was like when I first got my period, maybe like 7th, 8th grade. And all throughout my life, I didn't have a child until I was 36, so I had no idea. Come to find out, when I found out about my fibroids, my mother had gone through it. I have 4 sisters and a mother, and they all have gone through it. And no one said, hi, I'm your mother, I had fibroids, and so you'll probably have them too.
No one was talking about
Yeah.
it.
And how does that normalization impact and cause us a delayed reaction to something? Because if your sisters have heavy periods and your mother has a heavy period and you just think, oh, that's just what happens.
Yeah, no, and that is a common story. I hear this a lot from my patients where they're saying, you know what, actually, Auntie had a surgery way back in the days and we don't know why. We didn't talk about it. We didn't have a discussion. That is common found. Or my mom said, just pack an extra pair of clothes, you'll be fine. And normalize the abnormal cycle. And so they're delayed to diagnosis, they're delayed to treatment. It's common.
And so what is a fibroid? And do we have a sense of where they come from?
Absolutely know where they come from. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that we can do about it, though. Fibroids are tumors that grow from the muscle of the uterus, so every single woman can have them, and it affects 70% of women.
I was going to say 70%.
Yeah, 80 to 90% of Black women are affected by fibroids. And it's simply, you just have to have a uterus and you have to have hormones.
But why Black women 3 times more likely than a white woman?
Yeah, a lot goes into that. So we know now that there's genetics that go into it. There definitely is a hereditary component for everyone. And then for us specifically, our melanin blocks vitamin D. And vitamin D is associated with fibroid growth. So it's very multifactorial why Black women, some of it will say it's our diets, it's the things that we eat, it's the perm that we permed our hair with for decades that was affecting the way our hormones treat our entire body, including our uterus and the fibroids.
So vitamin D, we are deficient in general?
In general,
Yes.
most Black and brown people are deficient in vitamin D.
And if you had, in theory, enough vitamin D, the fibroids would maybe stay under control?
It can make a difference. So now we're advising people that know that they have fibroids. I say all women should take vitamin D for our bones, period. But especially if you know you have fibroids, vitamin D and green tea extract, it's a supplement.
Oh, wow.
Yep, makes a huge difference and can keep small fibroids small and actually help decrease the small ones by size slightly. But it's also something great for if you do something about your fibroids but have decided to keep your uterus, let's try to prevent them from coming back.
I feel like if there is an 80% instance in anyone's health, it should be a priority. This should be a public health issue that people are actively researching and trying to figure out solutions. And I'm wondering why that is.
Yeah, it's a public health issue. The fibroid burden in this country alone is upwards of nearly $4 billion, more than most cancers put together that women suffer from, and we just don't know it. I mean, if you think about the people that are missing school or missing work, missing productivity, that they're having to delay their fertility and their family planning, all of the way the fibroids can affect us as women and our families subsequently, it is a huge public health issue.
Now, for the two of you, did you all become anemic?
I did.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, I didn't realize what was going on. I run regularly. And so I started going out for runs and I would walk home. The same
Yeah.
route that I would easily run.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I just didn't have energy anymore. And then it just so happened, getting a blood test, the doctor called me the next day and was like, you may need to come in for an iron infusion.
Yep.
And so that was a similar experience for you?
That was definitely one of my symptoms. I would like run someone over for crushed ice. I was like, I'd had all these weird cravings as a result. But really quickly, I just wanted to touch on one thing, going back to why no one's really talking about it, or back then no one was really having that conversation. It was almost like, I don't want to call it like a dirty little secret, but it almost felt like it was happening to everyone around me and no one was talking about it, which is one of the main reasons why I decided to share my experience on The Real Housewives of Atlanta. At that time, the cast was all black. Pretty much, I think everyone except one person was dealing with fibroids, but no one was having the conversation. And I remember at the time when I pitched it to the producers, they weren't really sure if people were interested, if it was good TV or whatever, and I really fought to show my UFE procedure. I was like, this is affecting so many women. This is my reality. How am I on a whole reality show? And I'm literally, I can barely get up to even come film because it was just getting worse. I think at the worst for me before I had UFE, which is uterine fibroid embolization, which is where they basically it's a really non-invasive procedure where they cut off the blood supply to the fibroid so it eventually dies. And honestly, I literally felt better the next day after I got it. It was just instant relief. And I was a mess with my fibroids working. I don't even know how I look back on those old episodes and I see the dark circles and I just was not, like, literally they were draining the life out of me.
Because you learn how to cope.
Right.
You just get up and
It's a
go.
way of life,
Like
right?
you just suffer.
I started
and I'm like, why am I
scheduling
suffering?
my day like, okay, so I'm going to need to change a tampon
Yes.
here. I'm going to have to do that. I can't. I mean, I remember when we were covering the Republican National Convention, I had been scheduled for 7 straight hours of being on TV.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, wait, how am I going to navigate this? But at the same time, not want to go and tell somebody, I can't, like, I need bathroom breaks. I need, it becomes an awkward conversation to have with a colleague, with a boss. What were your primary symptoms?
It's so funny that you say that it's awkward because 70% is an this crazy number. Yeah. And so when you think about it, it should be a normalized conversation and a normalized situation where, I'm sorry, I'm going through my period right now and I have fibroids, so I'm going to need some extra time. And everyone in the room should understand, right? But instead, we hide it and we normalize not having the conversation and normalize being on the outskirts when in reality, all of us sitting here has gone through the same thing, So I became a bit upset at my siblings and my mother. I'm like, excuse me, you mean that this is something I could have prevented or taken care of earlier? And I could have understood what was going on with me. But like we said before, it's a normalized situation, especially in the Black women community, that, it's okay to take a change of clothes. And it's okay to wear a tampon and a pad at the same time. No, it's not. This is not normal.
But for you, Tracy and Tony both ended up having hysterectomies.
They had hysterectomy. And my mother had a hysterectomy. My mother had me at 29. She had a hysterectomy, a full hysterectomy at 36.
But you, even with your sisters, you weren't saying, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable.
No, because I had it too. And I didn't know that it was fibroids. I thought it was a normal period, a heavy, ridiculous normal period where you miss school, you have insane cramps. Like it would be to the point where I would feel nauseous, couldn't get out of bed, and I would be exhausted. And the exhaustion came from having extreme anemia, and that was not a conversation in a household full of women, Black women, that we should have been sitting around on this couch speaking about.
Everyone was suffering in silence.
Suffering in silence.
For me, I feel like I started out with a normal period, but then it started gradually becoming 8 days, 9 days, 2 weeks as an older person, especially after I had my son. So I realized, like you, when I was pregnant, they said you have a small fibroid. It was growing, kind of competing with the baby.
That's right.
But then at a certain point, the baby took over. And then I really didn't think about it. And then it ended up being so kind of like a crime scene for me every time, you know, it was, I mean, graphic, but like thinking like, I'm going to bleed out. Like, what is happening here? So then I went to the doctor, realized after a while that I had these fibroids. So I opted over time to get a myomectomy.
Sure.
Knowing that, and that was a few years ago, so knowing that they could grow back, and they did more and bigger. And so, you know, there are the different options. The embolization I was thinking about, but it seemed like they could go down, they may be, your life may be better, and it felt like the hysterectomy was just the final way to, because I'm still potentially a few more years away from menopause, and I just felt like I didn't want to potentially have another 5, 6, or 7 years like this. How did you ultimately decide, you know, I'm going to go with the UFE?
Well, when I had my procedure, I was already in my 40s. So I felt like I knew the fibroids would not come back overnight, and I knew at some point I would start menopause, which at that point I would be on the other side of it, and it wouldn't be a real issue for me anymore. So, and that's pretty much what happened. You know, I didn't feel any more discomfort. I'm no longer anemic. My cycle, as soon as I had the UFE procedure, went from like 9 days to 4 days. I never had white sheets on my bed. Now I have beautiful white sheets. I never wore white. I never wore white pants. None of those things. Sex was better. Just my whole quality of life was better after I had that procedure, which is why I still talk about it. I'm like way past fibroids, but I still want to help keep this conversation going because so many women still don't know. That's why I partnered with USA Fibroid Centers to be a part of a community that is still telling this story about fibroids, because so many times, no matter where I am in the world, someone will come up to me and go, Cynthia, oh my God, thank God you, I first heard about fibroids. I didn't even know I had them until I saw you talking about them on The Real Housewives of Atlanta.
But I wanted to ask you a question. How many patients that look like us come into your office that you have to talk to them about fibroids and they don't know about it?
Oh, so I'm a specialist, so everybody that comes to me is thinking about having some type of surgery, but a regular gynecologist is quite often where patients are coming and starting to tell that story of things are starting to change. And the hesitation in the doctors to not order an ultrasound or say, let me at least check and see if you're anemic. Why are you eating ice all the time?
That part.
That's called
Oh,
pica,
ice
right?
was a big deal growing up in my household.
Exactly.
BP had the best ice at the gas station. I was like an ice.
Nowadays.
I was an ice expert.
Just to explain this, so this is if you have anemia,
You wanna chew
quite
ice.
often you want ice.
Yes,
Okay.
it's called pica. And some people eat soap, like detergent, starchy things. And
very
that's
much
literally from the iron deficiency anemia. But that is just a little story and a peek into something else is going on with this patient. And so it happens quite often and unfortunately is ignored. Or they're pushed aside and said, oh, that's normal, you're just a woman, you'll be fine. And it may be 3 or 4 years on average before a woman would even get diagnosed with the fibroids where their symptoms started so long ago. Yeah.
And why do you think that there often is, and we've heard a number of women, Venus Williams just shared her story about how there often is misdiagnosis, even when you are being an advocate and raising your hand and going back to the doctor. I mean, even though I had a history of fibroids, when I went this most recent time, initially, because I had kind of a bulge poking through my pelvis, and the doctor said she thought it was a hernia. And I already have this history of fibroids. So then initially we were taking action as if I had a hernia.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to diagnose. All it takes is an ultrasound. And it'll show, like, there are other things. Endometriosis, we can't see that.
Right.
We have to listen to the story, right? But fibroids are easy to see on imaging. Sometimes not always obvious on exam, because I have a lot of patients that come to me and they're like, why didn't my doctor feel it? I go every year. That was my story. Why didn't my doctor feel it? I went to the doctor every year, and mine was twice the size of a uterus should be when I was diagnosed.
Oh, wow.
And I went to the doctor every year. So that delay and kind of being brushed over in the healthcare system is a part of my problem and why I talk about this all the time. Because it's one thing for patients not to understand what's normal and abnormal. It is a whole different thing when you go and tell your doctor a story and you're ignored.
That's
I
right.
just don't understand why they don't bring it up as, like, I felt like I had to
common.
literally
They should.
try to figure out what was going on,
Right.
as opposed to, have you thought about, could it be fibroids? Like, it just never came up until I did my own research to figure it out.
Tamar, what were some of your biggest, obviously you had a bad cramps, bad periods. Did you have other symptoms?
Infertility.
Because of the fibroids.
Because of the fibroids.
That was blocking the process.
Yes, and I had no idea. Like, and my whole life, I never even had a scare. And yeah, come to find out when I was going through the IVF process, I had a scan, like you said, and then I found out I had fibroids.
And so then how did you treat it?
I had surgery.
Okay.
I had a fruit basket.
You had a
lemon.
myomectomy.
Yes.
You had the fibroids removed.
Yes, I did. And
How many did you have again?
7. Yeah.
And they were large, they were ranging
It was just
in
a fruit
size.
basket. It was like a little grape, a little avocado,
Okay.
a little fruit basket. And then I went through the IVF process and then had, I call him my miracle baby. So I got pregnant on my own. So I was able to get pregnant on my own. Yeah, I know, right?
Love that. But that's a silent symptom of fibroids. I call infertility the silent symptoms because sometimes patients have no other symptom. They don't have the classic heavy bleeding pain, back pain. Sometimes patients just have, oh, I got to go to the bathroom every 2
All
hours.
the time,
All
right?
the time.
Because it almost seems like you can't empty your bladder
Enough.
because it's in the way. What do you recommend for women who are being misdiagnosed, who aren't being taken seriously or actually heard when they're speaking to the doctor?
I believe in second opinions. I do, in all things, right? I believe in you trusting your body, trusting what you know to be true of what's changing about it. And if you feel like you're not getting the attention that you need, go find another doctor. There are plenty of us out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are literally the governor, the CEO of your body, and you're hiring me. There's no way that I can tell you what's going on with you better than you can tell me. So the second opinion is about researching, finding out about it by yourself, finding out what these options like UFE, radiofrequency ablation, myomectomies like the 3 of us had, and even what is the truth about hysterectomy. It's such a mysterious thing and a lot of people don't want to talk about it because it sounds like, you know, a definitive
I was
throw
going
in the
to say,
box.
I have a question.
Ask all.
How do you feel about living without your uterus?
Well, when I first sat down, you were like, "How are you?" And I was like, I would say that there's a little nerves. I've never had a major surgery before, and so, hearing about potential side effects or blood clots or whatever that can happen after surgery, I feel there's some concern, but now that I've, had my son, don't plan on having any other children, I don't know that there's and pardon my ignorance here, but I don't know what I don't know as far as, do I still need a uterus for anything else? And a doctor that I talked to said, at this point, especially with all the size of the uterus and all of that, I don't see the benefit of you keeping it. But when I was reading about, UFE and the other options, which the doctors did present to me, I guess I just want to be final and
You just want to be
finished.
done with it. Yeah.
It's just, it causes me enough angst and grief and, planning my day differently accordingly that I really feel like I'm ready to be finished with this journey.
I get it, but I don't know, maybe it's my ignorance, but as a woman, I don't want to part with my uterus.
And that is okay. So one thing that I'm so proud of is being able to tell patients that hysterectomy is not the only option you have.
Right.
For some patients, at the end of the day, it is their best option. For me, it was my best option because I needed to be done.
I always feel like it should be the last option.
It should be the last.
Because I'm like
yeah.
Tamar. I feel like if it's in me, if God put it there, if I can keep it,
Yeah.
I know it's there for a reason. It's holding something up. It's doing something in there.
So it's funny you say that because that is honestly one of the reasons some patients do wait a while to get their treatment and get their options, because that might be the only one that's ever given to them, or they may come to the realization that might be the best thing for me, but feel really, really uneasy with parting with it. And mentally, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about after my hysterectomy, I think around 2 weeks, I was kind of yearning for it. It's not unwritten. Now, trust me, when 6 weeks came and I ain't had that cycle, I was say, babe, where are we going? Who's planning the trip to Africa? I'm not checking my calendar. I haven't looked back. But the mental health part of parting with something that is tied to such a beautiful part of our womanhood, it is real, and we don't talk about it. It was there. It was there for me. I enjoyed my pregnancies. It was beautiful. But I also could not sacrifice my life anymore to my uterus, and that was the only definitive option, like you said. I don't think anybody wants a hysterectomy. But I think the women who choose a hysterectomy are choosing it because they're choosing to something definitive and to be done, and not a slave to the back and forth of fibroids. They're choosing peace. It's the only option where it can't come back. And 60% of the time, unfortunately, fibroids do come back.
And so you had a myomectomy first, and then you got a hysterectomy, which is the same thing that I'm experiencing.
And 2 beautiful boys in between.
Which is the purpose of the uterus, really, right? I mean, do we still, what am I going to be missing out without the uterus?
As long as you keep your ovaries, which I'm a fierce protector of that. As long as you're keeping your ovaries, from a hormonal standpoint, you're keeping the integrity of that sense of well-being, feeling like a woman, your libido, your lubrication, all of that is tied to your ovaries, your bone health, your cardiovascular health, your brain health. Again, that sense of well-being is really your ovary. Your hormones are not made from your uterus. It doesn't make any. It is the facilitator of pregnancy and birth. And bleeding.
So that would make me feel better, knowing that information.
Absolutely. We don't talk about it.
Okay.
But so we're the same age. You had the myomectomy. Your fibroids have not grown back?
No, but that's what I wanted to ask you, because now I have IVF. What's the best thing? Not IVF. What is it called?
Is it ablation?
No. What I tell you I had?
Oh, an IUD?
IUD. The best thing that ever happened to me.
Do you have a period?
No. It's free for all. Hallelujah.
Love the IUD.
Oh man, it changed my life.
How so?
I don't have the heavy periods anymore. I don't have to worry about it. I just live free. I really do. I have my uterus. I don't have to think about, and I know that you're about to get rid of yours, and I don't want to be insensitive, but that's why I asked you that.
Yes.
You know, because I would feel away, you know, and now having the information that as long as I have my ovaries, I think I feel a bit better about it if I had to have a hysterectomy. And I don't think the conversation is being had that we need to know these little things. It changes.
All of the options.
Yeah, it changes your options, and it changes the way that you would feel as a woman. Because I remember my mother saying that after her hysterectomy, she struggled feeling like her old self. I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
But I thank you for asking me. It's the first time anybody has asked me like how I'm feeling about it, and I had to actually think about how am I feeling, because I have just been thinking, okay, what is the solution? And I haven't thought about what it will mean for me or any kind of attachment at all. So it is a really meaningful, thoughtful question that I appreciate. I'm wondering if you had a scenario where 80% of white men under the age of 50 were likely to get this diagnosis. Do you think that we would be further along with solutions, with research, with understanding why even it happens?
I feel like we're just starting to turn the corner. We're getting more legislature, we're getting more research, we're getting funding for NIH projects that are centered around, like, are there holistic, are there foods that we should eat different? We weren't having these type of conversations and highlighting it 10 years ago even, right? Other than Miss Cynthia Bailey, who was happy to put it on a national platform. So we're starting to turn the tides. We have newer technology like UFE, where we can shrink the fibroids doing radiofrequency ablation, and that option laparoscopically, you know, people are learning about. So we're starting to get there, but to answer your question, it would have been done a long time ago. A long time ago.
But it's our fault.
Yeah.
Because we refuse to have these conversations. You know, people don't know that there's a problem until we let them know that there's a problem or there's an issue.
And it's almost like this thing, especially as a Black woman, where we just inherit this right to suffer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's almost like, oh, well, why should I feel good? Like, my mom didn't feel good, her grandmother didn't feel good. Like, you just are okay with pain and feeling uncomfortable, and you feel like you just have to get through it because you're just a woman, and this is just a part of womanhood. And I think, especially in the Black community, we kind of take that on, and that needs to stop.
Hello.
We deserve a good quality of life.
Absolutely.
And what is it about what Cynthia was just saying? Because part of the research I saw, they were talking about stress hormones and how Black women tend to just ride at a higher stress level, and therefore the fibroids might
Grow. Absolutely. Stress is a huge component of fibroid growth, literally because it affects the inflammation in our body, and that inflammatory state can affect all disease processes. But somehow the way fibroids grow thrive off of that. I saw some of the largest growth of fibroids during COVID when I could not get to my patients, when I could not do their surgeries, where we had to find creative ways to just get them from month to month because the heavy bleeding didn't stop because we shut down, right? And then when I came back to them, I mean, these fibroids were twice the size. They grew tremendously, and it was the stress. It was the stress of that time in our lives. It definitely makes a huge impact, but the research shows that very clearly.
And you were mentioning like diet. Are there certain foods that you should eat? Because that's also not a conversation that I've had.
I start there with my patients because patients have so much fear about doing something and them coming back. So I'm like, okay, even if we do something about them now, how can we not let them come back? I can't do anything about what you brought me.
Right.
Changing the diet, red meats, beef and pork have a high amount of estrogens in them and hormones. So they feed the fibroids. The bacon, baby. The bacon is what my patients don't want to give up. They don't want to give up the bacon. But red meats, things like processed food, turkey, switch everything. That's what I did. Switch everything for turkey. Processed foods, canned foods, because there's a lot of additives. That's why it has a shelf life, right? Because you can keep it for years and years because of the additives. And then simply soy products, which sounds great. And when I go through menopause, I'm going to eat soy every day of my life. It's a beautiful natural estrogen, but our body does not need more. It doesn't need help premenopausally because
So
then
you
it
don't
defeats
want the soy prior
You
to
don't want a
menopause.
lot of soy prior to menopause. Everything in moderation.
I heard about the
But
soy.
we love plant-based everything. Plant-based is great, but don't overdo it because soy has a natural estrogen in it. And then cutting out things that, obviously fast foods and things like that. Unfortunately, estrogen, anything that's going to be a hormone disruptor, the water bottles that we drink out of, being careful about taking in too much of that, all of those things disrupt the way our fibroids grow.
I have a question. I'm all about early detection. I always thought like the whole fibroid conversation happened when people were older. What age do you recommend young girls who are on their cycle to ask to be checked, since the gynecologists are not going to tell us to get checked?
Yeah.
So what age do you recommend? Because my daughter has bad periods as well.
She's 25.
She's 25.
Yeah.
And like she's literally like, she'll call me and like the first two, she's like, Mom, I just started my period. You know what that means? Like,
She shut
don't
down.
even call me
Yeah.
for like 2 days.
The
like, I'm
shutdown,
out.
the famous shutdown.
Absolutely.
And
I
she's
don't know if
busy.
she has
She's
fibroids,
dancing,
but I'm
she's
like,
doing all the things, yeah.
should she get checked? Should she ask to just, should she find out
Absolutely.
before they start to really grow and become an issue?
Absolutely, especially because you have that history in your family,
Yep.
right? So we generally would like to see all women in our office by 21, because that's when we do our first pap smears now. It used to be much younger, definitely by 21, but younger if they're having bad cycles, because we're not made to suffer, right? And especially if the cycles are heavy, because the ultrasound could be done on the abdomen as well. It doesn't have to be a fear of the invasiveness. It actually can be a really non-invasive way to do a simple, very cheap test. So that conversation should start as soon as you recognize something is not right, but certainly they should be coming in to see us by 21 and opening the door to you know, it's an intimate discussion. So you want to be comfortable with the person you're having it with. Definitely open that door by 21, and then year over year, we can be talking about what's changed.
Okay.
And so the first thing you would do is send somebody to get an ultrasound.
First thing, easy.
Because for me, there was a process of, I went and got the ultrasound, then I got an MRI, then they did a biopsy. And it was a year process. And ultimately, and I was relating to something that you wrote about being on the red carpet. So it was such an embarrassing moment this past March, I guess it was, for the Oscars. And I'd gotten this dress, and maybe, I don't know what happened when I tried it on, but it was fine. But when I wore it actually on the red carpet, my very good girlfriend, who will tell me the truth, right? And she was like, her sister messaged her and said, oh, the internet is saying Linsey's pregnant.
Oh, the bloat, honey. Yeah. The fibroid bloat.
I stayed on the celebrity baby bump alert. Like I was always I was always pregnant with imaginary children because of my fibroids. And I was always shutting down rumors. I was like, I'm not pregnant,
Yes.
I have fibroids. It was so
But it is
embarrassing.
a pouch that,
Yeah.
happens.
Absolutely.
And I just really wasn't thinking about it
Yeah.
at the time. And so then when it's like, oh my gosh, people now think I'm pregnant. And I became more aggressive at that point where it's like, I have to even think about what I'm wearing.
Yeah, because you start to be a little subconscious.
Right, exactly. Yes.
All of those things. I remember going to and this was the final straw for me. I was married to my first husband at the time, and we went to a Bravo event. It was like out of town somewhere, I can't remember. And we were doing a meet and greet, and I was on my cycle. And I was probably seated for like a couple of hours signing, autographs, talking to the fans or whatever. And I remember when it was over, I stood up and I just felt like I knew what it was. It was like a big
The gush.
whoosh, yeah. And I was like, and I just looked at Peter, and he was like, oh God, not this again. Because at this point, he's been in it with me. He already knows, we can't have white sheets, none of that stuff. And by the time I got up, and I had on a tampon and I had a pad. None of that mattered. All that was soaked through.
Right.
By the time I got up, I'm walking to the elevator with Peter. At this point, blood is running down my legs.
No.
But no one's looking down at me. Everyone's looking at me. Like, Cynthia, oh my God. I'm like, I'll be right back.
Yes.
I got to go to my room for a second. No one's looking. By the time we get to the elevator, I'm like standing in a pool of blood. It was insane. I was embarrassed, but when I tell you Peter was mortified, he was like, you got to do something about it. This is crazy. Because he had to call downstairs and say, hey, can you get somebody, because there's blood in the elevator.
Right.
And I remember getting in the shower, and I just started crying. I was like, I'm so tired of feeling like this. I'm so tired of living like this. And that was the point. That was my breaking point where I was like, not another day.
So many of us can empathize. And so I'm so glad that you really did start the conversation publicly.
Oh, absolutely. And not only does it affect you, it affects your family. It affects everybody that's around you, your kids, everyone, because you don't feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I was exhausted all the time. I was always tired, and all I did was work. And when I could just not be present, I would literally just take a shower, get into bed, and just be like, everyone leave me alone now. Because now this is a time where I can actually rest when I have to get up and start my Cynthia Bailey life all over again. And no one's trying to hear about like, oh, you can't film today because you have fibroids.
Yes.
Like that's just not a doctor's excuse for this industry. They don't care about that.
Any industry.
Well, any industry, especially entertainment, because they're not shutting down a whole crew.
Right. Are you dealing with, hey, you got to go on stage right now.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you're like, oh, I'm starting my cycle today.
Oh, listen, let me tell you something. I have preventative outfits that I still wear today, although I don't have a period anymore. I don't know if you guys will see me. I always have a shirt wrapped around.
I did that for a long time too.
My
Me
husband
too.
used to always have
Me
a cardigan
too.
when we went out to dinner.
The shirt and skirt.
That's true.
Yeah, so that's what I do all the time. Still, it's because it's a part of life now, right?
Yeah.
No, that's smart. That is smart.
And I only have black underwear for years. I never have colored underwear, and even though I don't
'cause
have
why?
any more, I was like, I know maybe too much information, but I'm just saying, I just never went for the pretty colors because I was like, well, that's not gonna hold up well.
So after people have gone, they get the ultrasound, and then what are the options that you present?
Sure. So after we talk about lifestyle and those modifications, there are some medicines that can help with the symptoms, but they're only helping with the symptoms. They're only maybe slowing down the bleeding. They're not really changing the architecture of the fibroid or shrinking them. And then there are procedures, if they're ready for that. Some patients are good right there at the medicine to slow it down. If they actually need a surgery, there are things, there are 2 ways to shrink them, 2 ways to remove them, I tell patients. UFE is one of them, where they stop the blood supply. Another one is to shrink it with heat, instead, where we're not stopping the blood supply to the entire uterus, but literally just treating each fibroid one by one with heat. And then you can do a myomectomy to cut them out and remove them, or you can do something like a hysterectomy to remove the uterus and the fibroid, leave that ovary alone.
Why did you decide, after you'd had the myomectomy, they grow back, you have the 2 babies, and then now I'm ready to get rid of the uterus?
For me, it was literally a fear of doing it all over again. When I started to have the symptoms and I turned to my husband and he said, "We're gonna do this again?" I said, "Oh, no sir, we're not. No sir, we're not." It was almost like I was preparing to relive a nightmare. And so it didn't take me terrible. It took me a little while to decide on hysterectomy because I actually wanted radiofrequency ablation. I wanted to shrink my fibroids. But then I piled on like what my bladder is doing and a little bit of descent, like a little droop, and I needed the whole mommy makeover situation.
Got it.
So for me, it was more than just the fibroids that helped me make that decision. And I swear I have not looked back.
But you feel the same way with your embolization.
Yeah.
Not looking back, that was the right solution.
It was the
for
right
you.
situation for
Yes.
me. You know, everyone's not a I feel like fibroids are very individual.
Yes.
What worked for me
Not a
may not be
one-size
work
fits
for
all.
you.
Absolutely.
It is definitely not a one size
Yes.
fit all. This is what worked for me. And I think a lot of it was timing. I think it was placements of my fibroids, the size of my fibroids. It was just the perfect storm for me. And it worked.
And so what are you telling your 25-year-old daughter?
I'm telling my 25-year-old daughter to not suffer quietly. If she is feeling any discomfort, to pay attention to her body and to seek answers and ask questions, because you're not always given the information. You have to actually ask questions, and no one knows your body more than you do. Like, I don't know, I gave birth to Noelle, but I don't know her body.
Right.
All I know is, for her generation, I feel like, I'm well into my 50s. We had no choice but to I grew up strong. I grew up being able to do everything. I feel like her generation is a little bit more fragile. Like, fibroids would just take her completely out. Where I was a soldier with my fibroids. I was like, I got this. I can suffer for 40 years.
Yeah.
And that's what you said. We're not made to suffer.
No, we are not made to
When you
suffer.
said that, and I was like, but I have been, and just built it into my daily life. There became a routine and everything, but you're right.
But it
I
has
think,
to stop.
Yeah.
It has to stop because, again, her generation, they're not trying to go through any of that stuff we went through. They're like, why would I be in pain? Why would I work for minimum wage? Why would I just start my own business? They just have a different mentality. But they are, and they're very much more in tune with their mental health and their mental wellness, which I didn't learn that to probably 5-6 years ago, to be honest. I will call Noelle and she'll say, "Hey mom, I can't talk right now. I'm taking a mental health day."
That's right.
I was
I
like,
love that.
wait a minute, didn't nobody tell me we could take a mental health day?
Oh yeah, baby.
And talk to us about your mental health at this, what you described as really a dark time as a result of the fibroids.
I feel good. I feel good. I'm lucky enough to have a daughter who is very in tune with herself. So she's always giving me these exercises and asking me these questions like, "Mom, I think you'll feel better if you do this." I mean, my life and my career is still very demanding. I have to do a lot, so I have to always show up, and I always have to look very happy to show up all the time.
And look good.
So it's called my game face. I know I'm like a machine at this point.
But there
in
was a dark time.
Oh, absolutely. When all of that was difficult. When I was, when I wasn't feeling well, especially, throughout my fibroid journey, I didn't feel like doing any of it. And, I'm very excited to be on the other side of it, but I do things to just feel better. As I get older, my health is definitely my biggest priority at this point, because if I don't feel good, if I get sick, I can't work. And, I still have to show up for work. So it is my number one priority.
Just any parting advice as a doctor who sees women who are in various stages of deciding, what they're going to do, for the young people in particular?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. So what I would love to see as soon as in the next decade is where we're treating fibroids almost like a preventable disease. No, we cannot truly prevent it, but maybe we can prevent it from being devastating to women. Maybe we can intervene sooner, we can get diagnosed quicker, we can embrace the technology that gives us options to treat fibroids when they're 3 centimeters as opposed to 10 centimeters. Right. And so what that's going to take is continuing to have these conversations, continuing to rally for ourselves and the generation that's coming up now, and also them embracing the idea, everything that you just said, I loved it, of prioritizing their health.
Absolutely. And also I think it's so important to bring men into this conversation because most
they
of us,
go through it with us.
we have men and they need to understand what's happening to us. Like they think we're just crazy, we're just being moody, we're doing the most or whatever. But once they understand what is happening to us, I think that it's just better for the relationship. It's just better for all of it because they don't have periods. Men, they don't have any of the stuff.
Yes.
Like all they do is just get to do what they do. And we're like left holding the ball, in every way. And one of the things that I do love about my ex is he was really in this with me because at the worst, that's who I was with. Yeah. And he went to those appointments with me. He went with me to have that procedure. And it really helped us in that way. We had other things we were dealing with, but that was off the table at least. And that felt really good to not, because I used to feel guilty that I didn't feel good. Like, just even for like regular things like, let's have sex. And I'd be like, I'm tired. Do we have to? I don't want to. Because I was literally so anemic at that point. I just was exhausted all the time.
Does it change your sex drive?
It does, and it hurts sometimes.
I was gonna say that thing hurts sometimes.
Positionally, they're like, this side is good, that side is not so good. Okay. Positionally for some women, fibroid, because it's a hard math.
Listen, missionary. Don't come at me with nothing else with those fibroids. You already know what time it is. And hurry up, okay?
But that all hopefully can be treated and remedied.
Do not play with me.
Right? Yeah. So I love that.
I started to feel like in my journey, mental health and women's health go hand in hand.
It does.
You know what I mean? Because we were all just saying, like, we suppress what it really feels like all the time. We don't want to tell people we don't feel good all the time. We're ashamed to tell our spouse, I don't want to have sex, or I don't feel like it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just feeling enough to do me. I can't engage right now, And I just think that we have to take it upon ourselves to check in with ourselves and make sure we are mentally okay, so we can show up for ourselves, and that way we can show up for the people that are around us. Yeah.
So when you were saying two of your sisters had hysterectomies, was that something that you talked to them about, or they shared, or it was just kind of like you didn't even know? And
no, they talked about it like in the wind. Do you know what I mean? Like, because we come from a family of females, we all had female issues all the time. And because my mother had a hysterectomy, it wasn't foreign, right? And because the conversation of, oh, Tony has fibroids or Tracy has fibroids, I think Tawanda had a fibroid, and then here I have a fibroid, it was normal. You know what I mean? Normal, but not notarized. Yes. We didn't talk about it. We didn't say, so how was it affecting you? And my sisters had heavy periods too. So I thought that was normal for me. Of course I was going to have them because I saw I'm the youngest, so I saw all of my siblings go through it. So what your question was?
Oh, yeah, when they got the hysterectomies, was it something that, you all were checking in about or talking about, or it was like, oh yeah, I already...
No one said, so how you feel, like when you sat down,
right.
Are you okay?
You didn't do that.
We didn't do that because we didn't know that mental health and women's health go hand in hand, and we have to have these mental conversations because it's not okay to suffer in silence, like you said. It's not okay. It starts to weigh down on you. And then that brings other health issues, right?
That's right.
And so we just really have to normalize speaking about our mental health in terms of our physical health. it really does make a difference, because I feel like had my sisters or my mom had those conversations with me, I wouldn't have been so surprised to have fibroids, and put that along with me having infertility issues, because that was a big thing for me. You know, and I would have been more prepared.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you would have tackled the situation earlier, because you would have been on the forefront of like, oh, I know what this is. Let me go ahead and, you know, deal with this while they're small, while I may have different options, you know, better options than, you know, what you may have had to eventually
So how come, I'm sorry to cut you off, but how come do you think gynecologists don't take it upon themselves?
That's what I know. That's what I was saying. Like, why
I know for
won't
this
they-
70%.
It should be the first thing they say to us. Like, do you have fibroids? Have you been checked for fibroids? Like, as soon as I walk in, like, that's the conversation that needs to happen.
And don't you want to have an ultrasound to see if you have fibroids? Hello.
Yes. And I think I take it for granted because that's primarily what I take care of, right? I take it for granted that patients don't even know that people like me that do minimally invasive surgery exist, that you can not have that big cut, that you can have your surgery done through an incision the size of my pinky, that you can go home the same day, that you, like you can go home the same day after your surgery.
Yes.
Like you can get back to work in a week or two. People, I take it for granted because that's what I do, but a lot of women, again, will stay on the sideline even because they're scared of the options, or they're scared of what that means next for what am I going to do about my fibroids? But it's 2025.
It's 2025 and it's laparoscopic surgery, honey.
Laparoscopic surgery, honey. So it's, I'm hoping that we're turning the tide now, and it's forcing people to talk about it more.
Let me just ask you, what will the procedure kind of be like when you're doing the robotic removal of the uterus?
It's real sexy. It's real. I mean, it's smooth because when we do it through an incision that is about the size of your pinky. Put the camera usually in the belly button to be very cosmetic because that can hide very easily. And then other small incisions for really tiny instruments. And inside, we can see it in 3 dimensions, almost like we're playing a video game over to the side. And it allows us to move the instruments like we would naturally move our hands if we were doing the suturing. And we're able to do it almost bloodless. Like that procedure, I might lose a tablespoon of blood to do the entire surgery.
Really?
And that's why you can get up, walk, go home, you know, and you can get back to your walks and back to your runs even quicker. And it literally is a huge difference from, I had an open myomectomy. I had a hip to hip incision. So that was a devastating way to have to heal from surgery. So now we know we can offer it in a way that is, you know, I feel like so much of our lives have already been taken by our fibroids to have to now heal in a way.
That's right.
That you feel like you're giving up even more. We don't have to do it that way anymore. It's a real sexy procedure.
So I shouldn't be scared. I shouldn't be
I think
worried.
you vetted your surgeon. You're going to a high volume surgeon that does this and that does it with intentionality. I feel like the practice of medicine should be very intentional. Absolutely. We as women deserve someone that is going to be caring about what we care about. That's right. And that's all you need to worry about. You should be able to go to sleep and wake up feeling you're on the other side of the journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
I look forward to that day. And I thank you all so much. I mean, this conversation, from that moment you sat down and said, how are you feeling? Really, it was a nice little self-check that I had to think about. But just hearing that I'm not in it alone, and hearing that this is an experience, unfortunately, that too many Black women in particular endure, it is nice to see that you can get to the other side. And so I just thank you all for taking the time and just having this very enlightening conversation.
70% of women lets you know that it's not just you.
Right. And 80% of Black women. Yes. 80%.
Yes. Wow.
All right. Thank you.